What's up, everybody? It's Keefy, and I'm back with another GhostCultMag.com live stream. Today, we're here to talk about Peter Steele and all the rumors swirling around Typo Negative. I'm sure the remaining living members of Typo Negative would prefer no discussions ever of stuff like this. But at the same time, I can't help but being a huge fan. I wore one of my Typo Negative shirts today. Thank you, Meth Syndicate Type 2 Diabetes, because I, in fact, have Type 2 diabetes. And I love Typo Negative so much, and it is Halloween time, and it is spooky season, which means it's Typo Negative season. So we have some news that we were hit with recently. We've also done a couple of recent interviews with both Johnny Kelly and Kenny Hickey about Typo Negative related things or their other projects like Sun Don't Shine and other things and some other goings on in the Typo Negative world, products, reissues, coffee, all these things. And so the conversation is really never dies down. We get asked all the time if I think this band can ever come back. I think the short answer is no, because Peter was such a unique and singular talent that he really can't be imitated or replicated. I think the band is putting together a live album they've been talking about right now. It's in the mixing stages. The first we really have ever heard about this. In the last week, we found out about this. And then also a lot of discussion around whether the band is comfortable ever doing like a tribute concert to Peter with fill-in people. So we'll talk about that in a second. We're bringing in a very special guest, ghost cultist Wil Cifer, who's going to come in and talk about this because he wrote an article that kind of spurred this whole discussion that you can read today at the pin post at ghostcultmag.com. In the meantime, I'll just quickly run through the minutiae. Obviously, I created this little slideshow here that always helps me keep on task, because if I didn't have everything spoon-fed to me, I would forget what the fuck day it is. Just a reminder, we do live streams all the time in addition to our regular band interviews and other content we put out weekly. I just have been doing a weekly series of unveiling new bands for the upcoming debut Mojave Experience Festival in Joshua Tree in March. You can check out that on our channel, also wherever you listen to podcasts, also our website. I have my weekly show coming up this Thursday where I recap all the things going on in the week of metal that was. This will be part of that discussion, of course. And of course, on my other podcast, the Glacially Musical Podcast, we just discussed the life and times of Ace Frehley of Kiss, who passed away, and a whole piece of my childhood is gone, which sucks beyond belief. But, what are we going to do? Our heroes are leaving us. Feel free to drop a tip in the tip menu. I'll share that again in a second. And as always, whenever I'm joined by a guest, I always split up the tips with them if I get any. So it's the beer fund, the weed fund, the whatever fund. And so, Peter, how do you approach something like this? Who are the bands that are inspired the most by Typo Negative? Is there anyone out there who can come on a stage, pick up a microphone, and do justice to Peter? A lot of people have covered Typo Negative. A lot of people tell you they love Typo Negative, and then you listen to the music and you don't hear it. I know speculation is rampant and not good. So this conversation is a way to not do speculation, but to wish cast, to make an educated wish like Deadpool about what we would like to see if something like this were to happen. And, we love Peter and we love Typo Negative. And I've personally asked these questions and been smacked down live in a broadcast in certain cases by Johnny and Kenny. I feel very fortunate. They've been very big supporters of Ghost Cult, myself and my partner, Omar Cordy. We've interviewed them and hung out with them, quite a lot of FaceTime with them, and just really great people. And, I would never want to do anything to besmirch their reputation. They have not told us anything. We don't know anything. At least I don't know anything beyond what I've, rumblings everyone else has heard. So with that out of the way, here's one of the last ever band photos of Typo. I'm sure when Typo was playing their final shows, they didn't think Peter was going to pass away and they were going to not ever come back again. And there has been a lot of Typo Negative discussion. We have this graphic novel, and we have now Typo Negative Coffee, which saw a couple of events this past weekend in Brooklyn and New Jersey. My friends were at Duff's for the coffee launch with Concept Cafes, who we've interviewed and done a lot of work with, and a lot of upcoming taste test videos and things like that. So I wanted to bring in Wil Cifer from Ghost Cult. He has also contributed this awesome article. Here's Will. Here's me. We're going to do the Brady Bunch. We're going to try to do the Brady Bunch. There it is. Took me a minute. Which one is it? Anyway, Will, how are you? I think I muted you. You can unmute yourself. And thanks for being here. And I hope you're well. Thanks so much. And happy Halloween to you, sir.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, this is my big holiday, Halloween, of course. So pretty stoked about it. And it's always, if Typo Negative is going to drop some news, this is the time to, kind of do it. And makes sense. Makes sense to me.
Right on. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate this article you wrote. So first and foremost, you talked about this whole genre of gothic metal and doom and goth kind of overlapping, and we've seen a lot of it, and it's become a lot more prominent. So I always say that doom metal, fans had to catch up to it. It's been around for ages, if you want to trace it back to before and beginning with Black Sabbath. But, Typo Negative was his own special thing. They really were a hybrid of these, special kinds of bands and their own filter in which it came through. And it wasn't just Peter. Obviously, it's an entire band. First Sal and then Johnny on drums and Josh's talent and Kenny's talent and vocals and guitar. And it was all these things together. Typo Negative does not sound like Carnivore. Typo Negative does not sound like New York hardcore much. Just a little bit of strains of it existing still because of who those guys were and the bands they played with. But we don't know anything. We have heard. We know there's a live album coming in 2026. It's being mixed now. And we know that the band is now open to some kind of tribute concert. Does that mean they're going to go full Pantera, put a band together and go on tour? I don't think so. I've personally spoken to both of those guys, specifically Kenny and Johnny, and they both kind of swore on a stack of Bibles or satanic Bibles that they would can't foresee Typo Negative reuniting without Peter. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right. I think it personally hurts Kenny to go play gigs with his other bands and have people yell out Typo Negative songs like he's some trained monkey. I know it hurts his feelings. I know it hurts him. He can't be seen as anything other than Kenny from Typo Negative. I will tell you that Sun Don't Shine is fucking stellar with the guys from Down and Kenny and Johnny. I love Silvertomb. In addition to loving the band and having interviewed them for that project, I'm helped run a Silvertomb Facebook page. So I'm into it, right? This is a band that's in my wheelhouse. And I saw Typo Negative 10 times. I could have seen them 100 times. They played New York City so much when I was growing up. I could have went every week to see them and seen them somewhere in the tri-state area. And I saw them just a few handfuls of times. And one of those was an Ozfest for 20 minutes. So, I do miss the band. I miss Peter. He was lovely. Met him once. He was very close with my co-owner, Omar Cordy. Used to call his house and talk to him and his mom all the time. He would give Omar advice about Omar's fledgling bands. So I don't know that Typo Negative is going to do a full-on, we're going to put the band back together with somebody or somebodies. But before we get into a tribute concert on paper and who we would recruit to be part of it, what are your thoughts about Typo Negative? What do you love about Typo Negative? Why do you think they have this endearing quality that people continue to love the band so much?
Yeah, Typo Negative, they've been one of my favorite bands since I got Slow Deep and Hard, So back in the 90s, because they kind of married what I like about metal with what I like about goth. But that was even before we got the Bloody Kisses, it was still darker, And then it was around that time, I'd heard Carnivore before. They had gotten, on some metal radio shows that I've listened to over the years. And so they were in my periphery, but I didn't really start checking them out till I got Slow Deep and Hard. And then once Bloody Kisses came out, I think that just kind of changed the game. And, even it's kind of funny because we were talking about, how all the different aspects of what Peter Steele does and what they did as a band, really. They never made the same album twice, and it was a constant evolution, which is almost like one of their heroes, the Beatles, in that fact. And I think that even comparing any band to the Beatles is a testament to how great they were. You know, me and Reza were doing our top 5 goth albums, and I said, you know, I would have to pick October Rust because Bloody Kisses is more of a doom album, and that they gradually progressed, but they didn't try to make another Bloody Kisses. They didn't try to make another October Rust. They just did what was natural and cared about songs, you know. And I think that's what made them so enduring, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. And it's hard not to have been come of age in the 80s and 90s and not feel that vibe. Typo Negative was, before Slipknot, the pinnacle Roadrunner Records band. They were the most successful band on the label. They were the first platinum band they had. And then Slipknot, and then Nickelback, unfortunately, and other things. But you know, I remember seeing Carnivore and being like, they don't want people to like them. I saw Carnivore open for Cro-Mags, like the Harley only Cro-Mags, right? No JJ. And the Best Wishes Cro-Mags, right? Which was like maybe my first Cro-Mag show, probably, in like 88, 89, 90. And then Type O came later, and I was like, oh, it's the Carnivore guy, because who else looks that big and giant and hulking? You would remember him, you know? You'd remember who he was if he came in a room. You wouldn't forget him. And I remember seeing the Type O guys. Like, I would go, you know, chaperone my female platonic friends to the bank and goth clubs in New York City. And, you know, me and my metal dudes would just kind of like hang at the bar and drool over girls that would never talk to us and make sure that nobody roofied my friends and make sure they got home safe if they went home with somebody else. And, you know, like, very disapproving dad vibes. No wonder no one's going to talk to me. I'm acting like a dad and feeling like a dad in this club. But, you know, I always had a kinship to the music. And, yeah, it's perfectly melded doom metal and goth. And I agree with you about October Rust. And I think it's interesting that they didn't try to either remake Bloody Kisses or October Rust again. Like, those were time capsules of the band then and at that time. And, you know, based on, you know, obviously they were the biggest selling band on that little label at the time. That also had Biohazard, Life of Agony, Sepultura, Fear Factory, right? All these pinnacle, Machine Head, all these important to me bands at least, and probably a lot of other people. But they also didn't try to recreate that ever again. They just kept doing what they did and moved down the line, you know, a little bit. And easily could have cashed in and kept redoing that, but that wouldn't have been true to who they were. And I think the authenticity is the thing that people love about this band. Not just the diversity, but that authenticity that so few bands have and are able to maintain throughout. You know, it's unfortunate that we only got that, you know, 15 years of the band, less, you know, 20 years of the band, and not much more. But, you know, that's kind of what we were left with.
Right, for sure. And, you know, I think that a lot of that authenticity comes from their background in hardcore, you know, because hardcore is all about being authentic, you know. So I can see where that kind of work ethic and not selling out definitely played to their favor and made them a longer lasting band because of that. Like, you know, just think about how many bands were huge and had big moments, but then after the big selling album, the next album was a flop because they just tried to, you know, remake that and it was just watered down, you know. And I think people can feel sincerity, and that has a soul to it, you know. So I don't know. That's how I kind of see them as being endearing, is because of they stuck to their guns. They stayed true to themselves, and all great bands that, you know, follow that path seem to have a longer shelf life.
Right on. So now let's jump into this article a little bit before we wishcast a Dream tribute concert lineup. Because again, I really don't. I have some thoughts about, like, you know, this again. I'm on the record as saying I don't see a full return to this band. It doesn't make sense for them. I think it's just not feasible emotionally, and again, that authenticity wouldn't be there. But you wrote about some kinship bands or just some bands that are recommended listening from you? I
Right.
always think you
And
have
a
amazing
lot of these
ears.
bands too, like, so I get a lot of record labels and stuff like that saying, "Oh, you're the goth guy. Can you write about this band, this band, this band?" And for me, and this goes back to integrity and like kind of like what you were saying about how we only work with people that we feel good about, and we have certain standards of what we do. We might not be rolling in the money, but we're rolling in integrity. So I sometimes have to draw a line and say, listen, I'm more than happy to cover this band, but I'm not going to tell people they're goth when they're playing metal. I mean, that would make my word seem untrusting. And I like to think that, that I'm always, if nothing else, I give people my honest opinion. And if my opinion becomes dishonest, then what's the point, But I think that there's a space for everybody. And I think that, it's important to show that while all these legacy bands are cool, I think that there's a lot of other music that gets overlooked too, Like I love Typo Negative, always listen to them. But there's also been some pretty good albums that I think that, can get overlooked. I think a case in point, although this is outside of the article, was, Dax Riggs had an awesome solo album that came out in January. February, their reunion tour got announced, and now the focus. Acid Bath's great, one of my favorite bands, but that Dax Riggs album needs to get more props. So, I think there's some bands that are kind of picking up where Typo Negative left off. I mean, even the stuff that guys like Johnny are doing, that Patriarchs in Black album is really good. I didn't mention it in that article because it's a Doom album, but I think it shows that these guys, even without Peter, were solid musicians that are just still carrying on. And if nothing else, the spirit of like quality music, is what they're upholding, rather than just being about the legacy of Typo Negative, which I think that kind of stands on its own two legs. It doesn't need them to prop it up. So I think that we're talking about bands like Black Cross Hotel. They even though they're a little more industrial, that's a great album. That Scorpion Milk album is fantastic. The guys from Grave Pleasures, got Nate from Converge playing bass on it. It's not to be overlooked. So I think that, and that's what keeps the scene or goth music alive, is we got to give all these other people a chance too. And I think that they're worth mentioning in the same, I guess, breath, when we're taking this into consideration. Okay, we got a possible Peter Steele tribute. That's cool, but I mean, let's also talk about what's going on now, and then we can look at, paying tribute to the past. We got to look forward and honor what's behind us. And I think that's what makes metal have such a lasting legacy too. Why it has such a diehard fan base is because everybody's like dedicated to the past. Bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, everybody that like came before. There's that honoring that lineage while still, being open for bands like, whoever's coming out with a new album, Sanguish Sugarbog, whoever, like those guys will admit that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Slayer, So, we got to keep that balance. And I think that it's a lot of the bands that I wrote about were bands that are certainly more on the underground, and not, they're not getting the buzz on some bigger, you're not seeing them on the cover of Metal Hammer.
Noted. It's pretty interesting. You did, Matt. Yeah, you mentioned I love Matt McNerney. I love Great Pleasures and every Beast Milk and every band he's ever been in. Actually, uh, every different flavor of every band he's ever had. New Paradise Lost album Ascension is incredible. New November's Doom record is stellar. I don't know that those are guys that would come in and be part of a thing like this. Maybe it's too out of far afield for them. I think Nick would be a terrific choice. Actually, you definitely hit it out of the park with some of these non-conventional choices, and I do want to run down the list. But before that, just in general, just because it's Halloween, beside obviously Typo and some of these other bands, what is some of your favorite Halloween listening? What do you listen to?
I'll tell you, it really doesn't differ than when I listen to the rest of the year. I feel like Halloween's just where everybody's on the same page as me, So it's the stuff like, today I've been listening to new Soulfly, which is not, necessarily that although it's darker than their last album. One album that stands out that I've been listening to in kind of that mood is the new album by Patriarchy, which is a kind of electro, not quite industrial, but looking in that direction. That album has been kind of consuming my playlist lately, so that's what's getting me in the mood so far. The new Peter Murphy is great. I've pulled that album back out. He sounds spectacular. I'm stoked that Gary Newman announced a new tour, so I've been going back and digging into some Gary Newman. So so I still love, and it's like anything else. I love the goth classics, but at the same time, I've heard Pornography 10,000 times, so it's good to give albums like that Scorpion Milk a listen, or listen to Patriarchy.
You can only listen to that, those 3 or 4 Ministry albums so many times, but also I don't get tired of those either. And I do love Gary Newman and so much more. There's a bunch of Vows just put out a banger new album. The Tron soundtrack, Tron Ares from Nine Inch Nails, incredible. I actually just saw that. That might be like my next live stream, unless something major breaks this week outside Halloween. I might do one on that. I really almost would like to go see it again. I liked it so much. I'm so sad it's getting drubbed in the theaters and people are not going to movies anymore. It's hard to convince
people. I want to see the new Frankenstein before I see that.
Yes, fair enough. And I missed the new Wolfman movie earlier this year that I needed. That's a shame for me because I'm such a big fan.
It was okay. Not great.
Okay. I'm into it. And then Eggers is doing the Frankenstein too, right?
Eggers is doing another werewolf movie.
Oh, another werewolf.
It's called The Werewolf.
I can't wait.
He's so cold,
He's great. I would love for him to have like a David Fincher like career later where he gets like super famous and acclaimed. But then maybe he can make his movies in his universe.
I think Marvel should bring him on for the next Thor movie.
That'd be sick, dude.
All the Thor movies have been too spacey and not enough Dungeons and Dragons, and I think he would bring the D&D.
You and I separated at birth a little bit. Brothers from other mothers. So let's go back to your. So I'm gonna say again, Typo Negative is not Pantera. Typo Negative absolutely missed by the current generation of young metal fans and music fans and goth fans. Absolutely beloved. Absolutely treasured. Several 10 of 10 banger albums. You can argue about which ones those are. I have mine. You have yours. I don't think they were as big as Pantera before, nor would they be now. I think the best case scenario is to get, new love on these reissues, a live album, maybe a live DVD, Blu-ray, video on demand concert that people have not ever really seen except YouTube, poorly recorded YouTubes on people's fucking dumb devices. And I really don't believe that Typo Negative should or will ever reform with another singer or other singers and go be on a tour. I think the best you can hope for would be a one-off. And by the way, Johnny Kelly in particular does not need the money because his gig with Quiet Riot is so lucrative. He does not need to work except for that. Like he works because he wants to work. He makes new music because he wants to. He does collaborative projects and jumps on people's records. Like if Danzig called him up and said, "I'm never going to tour again, but would you like to help make a new Danzig record with me?" I know he would answer the call. I asked him that. So like that I would love to see. I think Johnny works because he wants to. He makes enough money with Quiet Riot, carrying Frankie Benali's legacy. Never has to do that again. Kenny is a working guy. He's a working class dude like us. And I think he will always have a hand in music, and he also provides for his family. So like it would have to be astronomically lucrative for those two guys to do something for money. One, because one guy doesn't really has that thing already, and the other guy, I don't think he would sell out his integrity for the money ever. And that's my word. I know Kenny personally, and that's what I believe in my heart of hearts. And I think Josh is done. I cannot see him coming out of retirement even for a show. I think he's done. I don't think he would play. My personal, what do you think?
I mean, it would be nice to have him, if nothing else, for the backing vocals, Maybe if they told him it was a one-off thing, who knows? But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would even be open for like a Nativity in Black style tribute album, But yeah, no tour. And, kind of jumping the gun a little bit when we get into picks, I think that it should be very rooted in New York. And that's why I picked a lot of New Yorkers on the front end of that, because I think there's a lot of guys in some of those bands that could help uphold that legacy, one in particular. But yeah, I mean, I think that it would be for a love of thing and kind of for the love of the fans type thing, And it's one of those things like, so I'm pretty good friends with Sammy, and, he was saying, I would talk to him at Goatwhore gigs, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, nobody cared about us when we were around." And I'd be like, "Dude, you need to you need to kind of recheck out what's going on, because there's a whole new audience for you guys." And I think that Asabath has a similar thing to Typo, as in their absence, the internet has helped people check out music that, it hasn't been forgotten about, and there's a whole new fan base for, which, I don't know that those are the two bands that I would have, even though they're two of my favorite bands, I would not have suspected that that's what kids would be getting into. But, somehow the universe works in better ways than I can imagine.
I know people are asking me questions about, like, before Asabath did these shows, like, people were just on my shit about them. Like, I can't believe you saw them and this and that. And again, I love that Dax Riggs record, absolute top 10 from a spoiler alert, absolute top 10 pick for me this year. And I would like Dax to do that stuff more. And make that money if you're going to come back for all the right reasons and get money you never got before. Absolutely go do it, and do it, go open for System of a Down in Europe, because people never saw Asabath there, and they're going to do headline tours and open for System. That's insane. It's insane and great in the best way. Like, this is what the music business should be. You should get it paid forward to you now if you made great art back then and just got overlooked or not paid or whatever. So now you have your top 10 list in no particular order, as you say. I'm going to also have some other ones I'm going to throw at you after. You did say, before we go through this list, there are people that should absolutely not be. Was one of them 7 Second Songs guy, Vincent?
Oh yeah, no YouTubers. Come on, I think
he's great though. He's a great vocalist, and he does great. He loves Typo. I think no YouTubers. And you said like.
That's like Andy Warhol's version of karaoke, is
right.
Is the whole internet thing like that. And
I will.
I think there's a difference between doing an impersonation and like, I think if you had somebody like Keith Caputo doing it, he wouldn't be trying to mimic Peter Steele. It would be their interpretation of that, you know.
So that's the next thing. I consider these separate things. So we could be talking about a tribute concert. I think to make this happen, to pull everyone together, I think the way to do this is in a festival setting, like if Metal Injection, our brethren, does another Metal Injection Fest in New York, or Decibel Metal and Beer Fest in Philly. It's on the East Coast. Maybe it would line up with everybody a year from now, or 7 months from now, or whenever. So on one hand, there's a part of me that's like, I only want underground metal people to be part of it because originally that was the ethos of Typo. On the other hand, if you really wanted to get its flowers, you need kind of name brand people. Popular people. So like I know that Loudwire asked Lacuna Coil, who I saw earlier in the year and I do love and I have had great experiences with, how much they loved Peter, and they're like, oh, we would love to do a Typo Negative song, or maybe if there's ever a show, or do one of his songs in concert. And you were like, absolutely fucking no. I love that about you.
Yeah, I mean, if there are going to be female vocals who do it, I mean, I think Chelsea Wolf's a fair pick. I think, yeah, I guess so. I'll go with her. That'll be my my pick. Because she has a lower end alto to her voice. Yep. I'm afraid if Lacuna Coil did it, that the male singer would get up there. And I like Coma Lilies. I like that album a lot. So I respect what they do. But yeah, as far as like capturing the emotional quality, I think is the most important thing.
That's fair. I just think
you can butts and seats and do that too, you know?
Yeah, I agree. But I do think like there's that industry thing where they're gonna try to get named people. So that's the scales, right? Is it like name people versus people who would actually do justice?
I mean, there's singers that I love and bands that I love that have darker qualities, but like I would not want to hear Health do a Typo Negative song, even though I love
that. Is correct. Jake is great, and I do love Health.
I'm so high place.
Understood. So let's go through your list and do a few pros and cons and your rationale on each. And I'll give some feedback, and then I have a little list to read back to you that I put together. That will not, this is your article, it's your feature. I'm gonna run it the way you sent it.
But, I don't have it in front of me, so you pop them out, and I will. Yep.
So the aforementioned Keith Caputo of Life of Agony. No, new Peter, friends with Peter, sort of Peter proteges, if you will. Josh produced the debut River Runs Red. Keith and Peter were very close. Alan and Joey were also like they're all close, and they shared members. Sal, right? So, what do you think about why Keith number one with a bullet?
Well, Keith, I mean, has that emotional vulnerability to his voice, while still being able to. I mean, maybe not as low of a register as Peter, but able. Like I could see. Keith doing Christian Woman. I could hear that, maybe not My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, but I could hear them doing that. So able to put some grit in the voice, could even do some of the slow, deep, and hard stuff. Even though I think that if you were going to go there and do the older hardcore stuff, there are plenty of singers. Like I brought up the guy from Jumping Ahead, the guy from Age of Apocalypse, I think would be capable of doing that. I've seen lists where people have said Danzig, and that is ridiculous. Not that I don't love Danzig, but, and I know they toured with, I saw him open up for Danzig before.
I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. So let's not go on. Let's just keep it to your list for now.
Yeah.
And then let me come in with my feedback. I I think again Danzig is a big name artist who would make a lot of people would want to hear Danzig sing Typo Negative songs. Danzig has done covers of a lot of other bands, although usually ancient bands and Elvis. And yeah, so I'm talking about like Typo Negative plus maybe an all-star band of other people and someone to play keyboards, because no Josh probably. And then new singers. That's the idea I have here, as opposed to Life of Agony covering Typo Negative, Biohazard covering Typo Negative, Lacuna Coil covering Typo Negative for an album a record company would be trying to sell.
Right.
So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a tribute concert and who a cavalcade of singers could be. That would be a good idea, not besmirch their name and tarnish the rep. So Caputo, much agreed. I love Life of Agony and think that that's a natural 1-to-1. Right?
Yep.
Then you have a real surprise to probably anybody not named me. Henry Font of Piston is a band that does not get talked about, that I love, that should have been as big as Life of Agony and Biohazard and Typo Negative, and just never broke through beyond. I mean, they were like Kerrang big 30 years ago. They were regionally big in the New York City area. They were popular enough. Valium had a column in I think Kerrang and Metal Hammer. And Henry, who is still out there, they're still doing stuff here and there. Occasionally shows, occasional albums, right? Henry's a great artist and does not get enough respect. So I love you putting that respect on his name.
And I think he could pull it off, you know.
Word.
Also, it wasn't on the list, but in that kind of vein of bands that maybe weren't as big name, and his name is eluding me right now, although I know it, is the singer from Only Living Witness. I could also see him doing
Jonah. Yeah. Jonah. I love all those Massachusetts metalcore bands, Overcast and Only Living Witness, and it's almost November. It's not quite December yet.
Right.
But you see what I did there?
Yeah.
But anyway, Jonah's a little out there, but so is Keith. Yeah, he definitely has the vocals. I love the third pick, Brett Campbell of Paul Bear. Not only have they covered Typo Negative, Brett has talked extensively about his love of Typo Negative, the inspiration that Typo Negative has given him and the rest of that band. Have covered Love You to Death already, beautifully sung. He's got a great voice, and they've kind of turned kind of away from the doom metal into kind of a heavy metal torchbearer, or modern heavy metal in a way that I really love. And yeah, what a great pick that is. I love that dude.
Yeah, he just makes sense. I mean, they're a little shoegazy now, but I could even, you know, I was thinking about who could sing. Although we've heard him do Love It to Death, it would be interesting to hear him sing, you know, something from like Dead Again, or, you know, some of the songs that don't get as much love as the big hits. I mean, obviously you'd want to have those songs too. If it's, you know, we're talking a concert setting, you got to keep the crowd moving. So I think you're going to have to do those. But yeah, maybe throw in a couple that you wouldn't expect.
Couldn't you just see Brett doing Tripping a Blind Man and I Don't Want to Be Me? Absolutely nailing it. Like, because, you know, also like I love when guitar guys have to not have a guitar on for a minute and they have to hold the microphone or sing into a mic stand, and they're all like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like,
I mean, he could double up the guitar parts, or you could get some of these guitar players to try playing bass. I mean, I'm sure he could pull it off.
For sure. Fourth pick on the list, Genius, Dax Riggs, as you mentioned before. Unlikely, because this is a guy who has hated the music industry, and anything with a whiff of impropriety or something to cause celebre, he would probably be like, fuck all this. But I bet he loves Peter. I bet he loves Typo Negative. You know that Sammy loves Typo Negative. If this was at a you know, like a Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, I'm sure Acid Bath is going to get asked to headline one of these things sooner or later to do all of Scream of the Butterfly. Again, don't know if Dax would be into it, but he would be such an inspired choice, and he absolutely has the voice and the range.
Right, yeah. I was envisioning him doing, you know, something like Too Late Frozen. You know, that was the song I was hearing him sing in my head.
Right on. I love it. I think he could do any of them, honestly. Like croon them. His dark Americana stuff sounds like the chiller moments of the Typo Negative Goth Light. I think the doomier, heavier stuff, he absolutely can do some of that stuff. I know you're fucking someone else. Kill all the white people. Like he absolutely could do it. He absolutely could do it. Fifth choice, another person I have interviewed and talked extensively about Typo Negative with this Kirk Winstein of Crowbar. And not typically the voice you would associate with the Typo Negative type, but I think he would put his own spin on any Typo Negative song. He absolutely could play and sing all the Typo Negative stuff. And you know that he's already like 6 degrees of separation of Peteration because he's in Sun Don't Shine with Johnny and Kenny.
Right. And, Crowbar, we're starting to get into, if not bigger names that are certainly respected in metal circles,
Indeed. And I feel like Crowbar will have time to do some, again, makes sense for a festival show type of thing or an all-star show. They also can do an opening spot. Here's another one I absolutely love. Aaron Stainthorpe, formerly of My Dying Bride. I hate saying that sentence. And currently of, High Parasite?
Right.
It's the other band now. We just covered opening for Paradise Lost in Europe. And he is, first of all, he's a guy that will do vocals for anything. He's a man of 1,000 voices and faces. Fun fact, for those of you who love some Death Doom, you can check out Grief Symposium featuring former Ghost Cultist senior editor emeritus Stephen Tovey on vocals, and Aaron guests on that last Grief Symposium record, and he did quite a great job. So, what would you love to hear Aaron do at a type of show?
I think he would be a pick for some of the October Rust stuff. I think would work for him. I could hear him singing "Be My Druidess" pretty easily.
Nice, and maybe Wolf Moon and things like that. And then here's a real surprise, but not a surprise if you've read Will's work with Ghost Cult, Hangman's Chair, Cedric Tufudi. I hope I said that right. Howdy, maybe. I don't know. Got a great range, great vocal talent. Not everybody's cup of tea for that band, but clearly would be able to do justice to the work, right?
Right. And they're kind of carrying that vibe forward, I think. Like I used to have a Typo Negative shirt that had like all these like nooses and stuff on it. And that kind of tongue-in-cheek pro-suicide vibe is definitely what Hangman's Chair is carrying forward. And that's kind of the emotional message of Typo Negative too, is that if we weren't laughing about this, we would be crying about it. So here's how we get that out, And I think that might even be how bands like Typo Negative and Acid Bath to another extent resonate with kids today, is because there's a lot of kids that are having mental health struggles, and that is very honestly covered in Typo Negative songs. Even though Peter's kind of making fun of himself about it, he is opening up and talking about it, which was not happening a lot in the 90s. Only Typo Negative and Life of Agony were really, that first Life of Agony album is just so heavy because of the subject matter. The lyrics to that hit you as hard as the riffs,
It is a million nervous breakdowns of my early 20s. Lost it 22, 32, 42, right. 52, 53. That's me. Another somewhat surprise choice. You mentioned him earlier, Dylan Kaplowitz of Age of Apocalypse. Not just a killer band, but one of my favorite storylines ever from the X-Men comics. So a very cool named band. For those that are not familiar with Dylan, why do what attracted you to that band? And
because it's a way that he kind of blends his chest register when he belts it out, and is capable of hitting those higher, more emotive notes. So I think that would really work to capture it, because even though, you know, Peter had a sensitive side, he was definitely very punchy with his vocals when he needed to be. So it's having that balance, you know.
Right on. And then another singer, maybe top 20 band for me, top 15 band ever for me, Ulver, Christopher Rigg from Ulver. What a turn Ulver has made this last decade. Depeche Mode Ulver, I like to call them, and rightly so. Just re-listened to Assassination of Julius Caesar with my partner last weekend, a weekend before this past one. And I love that it's like, not a question of whether he could pull it off, but would he want to come to America just for that?
Right.
Because it's so much money to come over right now from Scandinavia.
And can you get a visa? You know, that's the thing. So there's some logistical things. That would be a case of maybe it's an album thing, you know.
Right. But Ulver would be such an inspired choice to do a typo song. They should anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? If there's no tribute album and no tribute show ever, Ulver, please go do this anyway. I'm begging you.
And another singer that I can kind of see tagged on, like, as a second choice if you can't get him, who's American and has a project that does something similar to Depeche Mode Ulver, is Greg Puciato.
The Black Queen.
Yeah, yes. I could see him. If he was coming from his Black Queen style, he could probably pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know that Greg was ever a typo fan. I think Ben
he at least respects them, you know?
Yeah. I've never heard him say a bad thing about them or a good thing about them. We know that Greg is an incredible interpreter and vocalist. His stuff with Jerry Cantrell, Better Lovers, new album coming on the horizon. He would be sick. Matt McNerney, again, rounds out your list of 10 from Grave Pleasures and a bunch of other hyphenated bands. Incredible singer, kind of gothy himself, kind of a Peter Murphy himself, right? Gary Newman himself a little bit into his metal and other things. He would be an absolute banger choice to come in and do computer.
And he would make sense, you know. Like, I can totally hear him singing most of that, you know. It would be, I don't think he could pull off the low notes in My Girlfriend's Girlfriend. You know, when we get into that, like, Andrew Eldritch register. But who could, and if you want some bigger names from the goth scene that might do it, would be Carl McCoy of Fields of the Nephilim, would be my outside the list pick, would be another one.
Right on. With respect to the fact that you were like, you know, maybe an artist of a certain level or caricature shouldn't be part of this. Let's get the 800-pound gorilla out of the room. Philip Anselmo, personal friends with Peter, loves Typo Negative, toured with Typo Negative. Pantera is doing the Pantera thing, even though we're supposed to get down for a good part of next year when Pantera is not in Europe with Metallica. I also would like to see N Minor is absolutely Typo Negative influenced, right? I don't know if you were a fan. I was.
Yeah.
You know, could it be a thing where like Scour plays early before and then Philip comes out later and sings? Maybe it would be too much for him to do the.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could hear him doing, like I said, I could hear him doing the Carnivore songs, which I think they should do at least one, you know. Hopefully Phil doesn't do Race War, but you know, that was the first Carnivore song I heard.
Same first take.
You know, but
it would be very
Kill
funny.
All the White, you know, he's done Kill All the White People before on stage with them.
With them, yeah. He said it was his favorite song by them.
Yeah. So yeah, get him on for that one.
Right. I have a short list of people, and I wanted your yay or nay on them, or just thoughts. Some may not be for you, but I think they'd be inherently interesting if they happen. So first off, in terms of a female vocalist, no one, male or female, can really be Peter. And none of this is with respect to bass playing, which will come up in a minute. I would think of, you know, I'll talk about in a second. But Cammie Gilbert of Oceans of Slumber comes to mind. She's a world-class vocalist. She's covered Wolf Moon on the last Oceans of Slumber record, or the one before last. She's brilliant. She has spent a lot of time in New York recording and touring, and I think she's got something about her that would do a wonderful job as part of this thing.
You know, I've heard that Wolf Moon cover, and it was all right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would say, as you were talking, another name that came up in my mind of someone, another female vocalist that's not Chelsea Wolfe that I would be open to hearing to would be Laura from Kylesa.
Fuck yes. You know what a big fan I am.
Yeah.
Anything for Laura. I love her so much.
And speaking of, I mentioned probably there that Discussion album is another good Halloween one that people can't sleep on. So that's my plug for them.
Noted. So another one off of my short list, maybe a little unconventional in terms of the vocals, but Jay Costa of Thy Will Be Done has been a friend to Ghost Cult. We premiered some stuff for them, interviewed them a few times. Big fan. He is a massive Peter Steele fanatic and a typo negative obsessive. And I think he would do a great job on either. I think he can actually sing beyond what people have heard him do. Thy Will Be Done is kind of like a more modern metal Pantera-y band. But I think he can actually sing a little also, but he also would be perfectly suited for the more heavier, faster things from typo.
Yeah, and I'm up for getting some hardcore singers out there for Slow, Deep, and Hard for sure.
Right on. Another name that I think would be unconventional but great would be Lejon Witherspoon of Seven Dust. The guy's got a beautiful voice. I think having heard the Soundgarden cover that Seven Dust did a couple of years back on Blood and Stone, phenomenal cover, made it his own song. Like, okay, no one can replace Cornell. I'm not going to try to. We're going to down tune it and do it my way soulfully. And I think LJ would be like incredible on Love You to Death or something like that.
It would certainly be different. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it first and reserve judgment.
Yeah, maybe not the goth vibes, but absolutely can do justice to it as a singer. Then another one, similar to Philip, friend of Peter's, Des Fafara of Cold Chamber and Devil Driver. Pretty sure Cold Chamber's first tour ever was opening for Typo Negative, where they were booed every day on tour, which is hysterical. Not great for them, but like they certainly toughened them the fuck up for the music business. And I think Des can actually sing. We never got to hear that Stoner Doom project he'd been working on with Mark Morton beyond the one song that ever got leaked. And I think Des loves Peter and would probably lobby to be part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, nu metal is my guilty pleasure. I guess I don't talk about it a lot. But so I saw Cold Chamber absolutely blow Mudvayne off the stage like 2 summers ago. And so, yes, I'm all for that.
Chad would be another one, Mudvayne. We just covered them in Boston. I mean, I saw Cold Chamber at Sick New World, and like the biggest crowd of the day that wasn't in front of the main stage for System of a Down was for Cold Chamber to sing along with Big Truck and Loco, which surprised this guy who was there back in the day 30 years ago to sing that shit. But I know Des has taken a beating in the press. I'm not one of them. I'm a wait and see kind of person. Judge later.
I didn't know that there was anything going on with.
Oh, it's Cradle of Filth, Des Fafara drama.
Oh, okay.
Danny Filth, Cradle of Filth drama recently.
All right. Yeah,
also,
keep Danny Filth also away from it.
He probably would lobby to be part of it, but yeah.
If you had to pick a singer like that, I would say 2 guys that we haven't mentioned. I'm up for Shagroth of Dimmu doing it, or even ICS Vortex if you can get him over. And Alan Averill from Primordial, I could hear him doing it too.
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting backstage with Alan.
Yeah.
Here's another one. We know this guy loves Typo Negative, and similar to Brett of Pallbearer is Nathan Garrett of Spirit Adrift. He has that Neon Nightmare project that's basically synthwave Typo Negative, including the fucking font. the typo negative design and font, just electric blue instead of electric green, and he's got a wonderful fucking voice. He has got the doom metal shit down pat. They also have kind of transitioned away from classic modern American doom and into kind of a heavy metal brand, and even a little more thrash. But I could definitely see Spirit Adrift and or Nathan come in and do a great job.
Yeah, I had that album. The font was a little too on the chin for me. So yeah, I mean, give him a shot. I would prefer him over the YouTubers.
How about a very big commercially successful metal-ish band like Avenged Sevenfold? Would you want to see M Shadows be part of something like this?
No. No. I'd be okay with I was thinking about Courtney from Spirit Box. I might be open to that. If we had to get bands like that, I would be open to her. And I don't hate Sleep Token, but I don't think that I'd want to hear him. He just doesn't have the voice for it. He has a great voice. It's just not great for that,
Yeah, any kind of cover would be his interpretation of it, not an actual.
Yeah, it would sound like, I don't know. I can kind of hear a Sleep Token cover of Typo Negative sounding more like Dead or Alive,
Oh, amazing. And I love Dead or Alive, and I love Spin Me. I do Spin You Right Round all the time at karaoke. Two last ones. This is kind of a no-brainer. Billy Vallo, formerly of Him, has already been part of Roadrunner United, did Black Number One and Christian Woman, if I'm not mistaken. Ville will undoubtedly have a new Billy Vallo solo album in 26 and Come Here in 26 and or 27. It just kind of makes too much sense. But what do you think of? What did you think of him then, and what do you think of him in this?
Yeah, I loved him. I did have a iffy experience with him live. I saw him was on this big tour that I think Linkin Park was headlining, but I left before they showed up. But I went to see him and Placebo because they were playing back to back, and I was like, all right, I'm there. Placebo and him. I think him could be one of those other bands that like we see a resurgence of, because they kind of hit back in the first part of MySpace, when Peter was still alive, when Him formed, when that first Him album came out. So I'm all for it. I like him.
And then last and never least, and you already mentioned this person before, Peter Murphy, just because if I'm wish casting and I have infinite amounts of money to throw at this thing, I'm going to try to get Peter Murphy to do a Typo Negative song. Because Peter would have loved that, right?
Yeah, Peter would have loved it. I don't know if Peter Murphy knows who they are.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Peter Murphy doesn't know who anyone is except David Bowie and himself.
Yeah, yeah.
His record collection
he might have an inkling. I can see Peter Murphy sitting around listening to. Well, he likes Ted Can Dance too, so I can see. Yeah.
And that Peter Murphy record was fucking exceptional, except the Boy George song, which I thought was terrible.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Fucking terrible. But Boy George, I love Boy George the person. Boy George the singer, I'd rather not. Okay? Right. Please no. No, thank you. I won't. I pass. Thank you.
So I think I think that I'm being pretty generous with those since I'm so protective of Typo, but I would be open to hearing some singer, although it's not as big of a scene. So that's the thing. If you put a bunch of goth bands on a metal festival, I don't know how that would work, but I think that it would be interesting. It could be like a Sick New World type thing. So that I could see it in that respect. A lot of the bands maybe drag out freaking Mindless Self-Indulgence, though I wouldn't want to hear Jimmy Urine sing any of it. But if you're thinking about bands to like throw on people might have missed out, a hymn reunion for something like that would work, So somewhere there's a promoter out there that is, that
It's
knows
already
that.
being talked about.
Yeah.
No, we don't know. We don't know. I think the main thing here is you love this band. You're wish casting along a fan casting as well. You love this band. You would all this is meant with the best intentions. We haven't talked about bass playing. As Johnny has said, no one can even do Peter on the bass, let alone on the vocals. I think Alan Robert of Life of Agony and Evan Seinfeld of Biohazard make the most sense. I would also say, I know he's pretty much retired in terms of touring, but maybe Todd Strange of Sun Don't Shine, X Down, X Crowbar also, has the gravitas and the good underrated bass playing. And then whoever, I don't know who else you could think of, but Alan comes to mind. I've already seen him do a whole Misfits set with Danzig in Jerry's spot, so why not Typo?
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I can see, I can see the guys from Prong getting involved in this to some extent too.
Tommy Victor, both vocally and just Prong the band, and maybe even though he's not part of that era anymore, but Paige Hamilton of Helmet would be an inspired choice to do some guitar on a song because that's that whole scene.
Yeah, I think, and that's my thing. I think as long as it's representing New York, and that's the thing. If it's a concert in New York, some of these don't necessarily have to be as big of a name. You could put Harley Flanagan on bass for something on the first album. And although he does play a little more on like Alpha Omega, you could tell he'd heard a Rush album or two.
Frankie Bello.
John Joseph on stage doing it,
It depends on who else is there.
Yeah, well, you can't have him and Harley Flanagan on the same stage.
John Bloodclot has beef with everybody.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if you heard that Bloodclot album that came out last year.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
I think he still has it.
And
he's important to the New York scene, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, he is. He's hugely important. You can shit on the guy and the things he says and does. You can't shit on his legacy.
Right. And you got to have some guys that are back there and backstage lifting weights. I think that's an important part of Peter's legacy, and that can't be overlooked.
Bro, just lift.
Yeah.
Any other as we are on Halloween week, and this is going to air this week tomorrow. What are you doing for Halloween? Watch scary movies?
We just moved. I just moved this past week, so I will be doing as little as possible. If I can find where Frankenstein is playing, maybe. I think we got the 31st is our supposed to turn the keys into the old place and have it cleaned. So that's going to be the morning. So I'll probably just listen to like Skinny Puppy while I'm doing that. And then, I thought about the guys from Electric Hellfire Club are playing the night before at the Crowbar. I think it's the Crowbar or the Orpheum here. And I thought about going to see that, but I think my next show that I'm going to go out to is Sangwa Sugabog in November. And then I'm saving up my money for Gary Newman and Ethel Cain. I've been on a huge Ethel Cain kick, which is kind of her new album is worth checking out if you in the Chelsea Wolfe vein. So it's kind of shoegazy, dark Americana that's good for this time of year. So there's my plug. She doesn't need a plug. She's huge as it is, but
yeah, right. She got so big in a short span of time. Pretty happy about that. Wil Cifer, always a pleasure to see you. I'm sure I will be back on one of your shows.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do
I'll link everything in the description where people can find.
We got to talk about the Rush reunion next.
Oh my God, we do. We'll find Wil at ghostcultmag.com as well as find me. And happy Halloween and rest in power forever, Peter Steele. Thanks, Wil, and peace, everybody. Thanks.